The sound of the battle still echoed in his mind, the clang of swords, the desperate cries of his companions falling one by one. He woke up with a jolt, sweat dripping down his forehead as the last vestiges of the nightmare dissipated. But this time there was something else, a presence, a shadow in the darkness of the room. "Do you want to rewrite the past?" The voice was soft, ancient, like the rustling of leaves in a quiet wind. The hero turned around, his hand instinctively reaching for the dagger under his pillow. But there was no one there, only a female figure, ethereal, floating by his bedside. Her eyes shone like ancient stars, and her countenance was calm, but bore the wisdom of countless ages. "Who are you?" he whispered, unable to look away. "Mnemosyne," replied the figure, the goddess of memory. "I have observed your pain, your regret. I come to offer you a chance that few receive. You can return to key moments in your life and correct the mistakes that haunt you." The hero felt a lump in his throat. For years, guilt and grief had consumed him, turning him into a shadow of the warrior he had been. The prospect of undoing his mistakes was tempting, but the fear of messing with fate paralyzed him. "What happens if I accept?" he finally asked, his voice breaking. "You will have the opportunity to revisit your memories and change them. But be aware that every change has its consequences. The present and the future are intertwined with the past, and for every decision, you will have to solve a riddle." "Riddles?" He frowned, confused. "Each choice will be accompanied by a riddle that will test your intelligence, your morality, and, above all, your understanding of the consequences. It's not just about changing the past, but understanding what each change entails." He hesitated, the weight of the decision on his shoulders. But the desire to right his wrongs, to save those he loved, was stronger than his fear. "I accept," he replied firmly. Mnemosyne smiled a sad, gentle smile. "Then prepare yourself, young hero. The journey you are about to embark on is dangerous and full of uncertainties. But perhaps, in the end, you will find the peace you so desperately seek." With a wave of her hand, Mnemosyne touched him lightly on the forehead, and the world around him dissolved into a golden mist. He felt himself floating, being pulled back in time, until the mist dissipated, revealing a familiar scene. He was back in his childhood, the day it all began. The hero felt the ground beneath his feet, now small and agile, as if all the weight of the battles and pain had disappeared. He looked around, instantly recognizing the field where he used to play as a child. The trees, the bushes, even the smell of the damp earth after the rain were just as he remembered. But this time, he wasn't just an unconscious child of the future. He was a man, a warrior marked by life, inside a child's body. In the distance, he spotted the younger version of himself running, laughing, unconcerned. His parents were nearby, watching tenderly as he leapt over rocks and laughed at his own imaginary adventures. It was a moment of pure innocence, but the hero knew that that day was the beginning of something much bigger. It was the day he would make a decision that, years later, would lead him to loss and suffering. He approached his younger version, watching every move carefully. The boy was about to face a situation that would shape his personality forever, an encounter with a group of older boys who used to bully him. At that moment, he would decide between facing them or running away. In the past, he had chosen to run away, an act that had shamed him for years and which, in his mind, was the start of his journey to becoming a warrior. As the boy hesitated, Mnemosyne appeared at the hero's side, as ethereal and serene as before. "This is the moment when your life has taken a crucial turn," she said. "You have the opportunity to guide your younger self to make a different choice. But remember, every choice carries a weight. If I change that, he can grow braver, stronger," the hero muttered, more to himself than to the goddess. "Or you can grow up with an arrogance that will lead you to other tragedies," replied Mnemosyne, her voice calm but laden with wisdom. "The riddle you must answer is, which is more powerful, knowledge or ignorance?" The hero pondered the question. Knowledge gave him the power to change, to influence his younger self to be brave and face his fears. But ignorance, the innocence of not knowing what was to come, was perhaps what preserved that childlike purity, that sense of wonder. "I choose knowledge," he finally said, believing that, with courage, the boy could avoid the insecurities that had plagued him for so long. With that decision, he approached his young version, kneeling down next to the boy. "Don't run away," he whispered. "Face them. Don't be afraid. That's the way to become strong." The boy looked at him, confused, but something in the hero's eyes, something in his voice, convinced him. When the older boys approached, laughing and teasing, the young hero stood his ground. He didn't run away, and by facing his fears, he changed the course of his own story. The adult hero felt the memory transforming around him, the images crumbling like ink in water. He knew he had changed something fundamental, but what this would mean for the future was yet to come. When the golden mist enveloped him again, he was pulled into the next memory, the next moment that would require a difficult choice. When the golden mist cleared, the hero found himself in a vibrant city, full of life. He immediately recognized the place. It was the capital, before the war devastated its walls and turned the streets into ruins. The sun shone high above, reflecting off the terracotta roofs and marble statues that adorned the squares. That was the day he met his great love, a bright-eyed young woman with an easy laugh who had changed his life forever. In the distance, he spotted her. She was walking through the main square, admiring the vendors' wares. The hero's heart squeezed in his chest. He knew that day, their lives would intertwine, leading them to a tragic fate. She would die in his arms, one of the victims of the war he couldn't prevent. The hero walked through the square, watching his younger version approach the girl, still unaware of the love that was about to blossom. Mnemosyne appeared beside him, her countenance as serene as ever. "This is the moment when you can alter your destiny," she said. "You can choose to avoid this encounter, sparing both of you the pain to come. But remember, every choice has consequences. The riddle you must answer is, can true love survive time, or does time define love?" The hero stopped to think. If he never went near her, if he never met her, there would be no pain, no loss. But neither would there be the happy memories they had created together, the moments of happiness that, however brief, had brought him so much joy. "But what if I can protect her from all this?" he thought, doubt eating away at him. "What if the love we feel can be experienced in another way, without the suffering that came afterwards?" Making his decision, the hero approached his young version, stopping him before he reached the young woman. "Don't go to her," he said firmly. "Go another way. Don't meet her." The young hero frowned, confused, but something in his future self's voice made him hesitate. He looked at the girl, who continued walking, and then turned around, heading down a different street. Immediately, the adult hero felt the world around him change. The square disappeared, and he was transported to a future where that woman had never been part of his life. He didn't feel the pain of loss, but neither was there the warmth of memories. His life followed a lonelier path, without the comfort that love had given him. Now he lived a quiet but empty existence, where he never experienced the heights of love or the depths of pain. He didn't carry the guilt of loss, but he didn't know true joy either. Reality weighed on him, and the hero began to wonder if avoiding pain was really the right way to go. As the golden mist enveloped him again, he was pulled into the next memory, even more confused about what he really wanted. When the hero emerged from the golden mist, he was on a training ground that he knew very well. The sound of the young warrior's shouts, the clash of wooden swords, and the dust kicked up by restless feet created an intense atmosphere. He looked around and saw the youngest version of himself, a determined young man, training hard under the guidance of his mentor. This man had been like a father to him, teaching him the arts of war and leadership. But the hero knew what the future held. That same mentor would betray him, selling vital information to his enemies that would result in a devastating defeat for his army and, eventually, the death of many close friends. The hero watched as his young self struggled to win his mentor's approval, looking for a word of encouragement, a sign that he was on the right track. He felt the weight of bitterness in his chest, remembering the betrayal that had left a deep mark on him, turning him into someone who was suspicious and hardened. It was then that Mnemosyne appeared again, the golden light that surrounded her glowing softly. "This is one of the most decisive moments of your life," she said. "You have the chance to stop this betrayal, but know that the price may be high. The riddle you must answer is trust built by loyalty or by necessity?" The hero pondered the question. He knew that if he confronted his mentor and avoided betrayal, he could preserve his friendship and loyalty. However, it could also completely change the course of his life. The mistrust born of betrayal made him grow as a leader, teaching him to be cautious and strategic. But that same mistrust also robbed him of the ability to open up to others, to trust fully. With his mind made up, he approached the training ground, walking towards his mentor. As he got closer, he observed the older man, whose expressions and gestures were still familiar to him. Confronting him now could change everything, thought the hero. "Mentor," he said, his voice laden with authority, "I know of your treachery. I know that you intend to hand over information to our enemies. But there is still time to change that. Choose loyalty, and we can avoid destruction." The mentor remained motionless, his face paling as he heard the hero's words. He looked at the young man training in the field, his gaze lost in a mixture of guilt and dread. "I never wanted to betray you," said the mentor, his voice trembling. "But circumstances forced my hand. I needed to protect my family." The hero, now fully aware of the need that motivated him, felt a mixture of compassion and disdain. He knew that betrayal could still be avoided, but the choice was not simple. "Choose loyalty," the hero repeated, his voice firm. "Together, we can find another way." The mentor nodded, his decision made. The betrayal was avoided, and the relationship between the hero and his mentor was restored. But the hero knew that this new reality would come with different challenges. The golden mist began to envelop him again, pulling him into the next memory. He felt the impact of his decisions, realizing that he was becoming someone different with each choice. The destiny he once believed he knew was changing before his eyes. The golden mist dissipated, revealing a battlefield. The sound of swords and screams echoed in the distance, while the smell of blood and gunpowder filled the air. The hero was back at the most painful moment of his life, the moment when everything fell apart. In front of him, an army could be seen marching, its flags waving in the wind, while its men, lined up, awaited his order to advance. He knew what was about to happen. This was the battle that would cost the lives of his loved ones, those he had sworn to protect. Guilt was eating him up inside, and now, with the chance to change fate, he felt the weight of responsibility crushing his shoulders. The hero looked around, searching for those familiar faces that would soon be dead. He knew he could save them, that he could make a different decision and avoid tragedy. But what would that mean for the fate of his people? Victory in that battle had been crucial, but at the cost of everything he loved. Mnemosyne appeared beside him, her calm expression contrasting with the chaos around her. "This is the moment when your life was shattered," she said, her voice calm. "You can choose to avoid this battle, to save those you love. But be aware of the consequences. The riddle you must answer is courage defined by the act or the consequence?" The hero reflected on the goddess' words. What did it really mean to be brave? Was it the action of fighting to the end, even though he knew he would lose everything? Or was it the courage to avoid conflict, to choose the lives of those you loved over the pride of victory? With a heavy heart, he made his decision. He walked towards his young self, who was about to order the advance. "Don't fight," he said firmly. "Take them to safety. It's not worth losing everything for this battle." The young hero looked at him, his expression one of confusion and fear. "But if we don't fight, we'll lose the war. Our people need us." "Losing this battle doesn't mean losing the war," replied the hero. "There are other ways to win, but if we advance now, we will all die, and there will be no future for anyone." The young hero hesitated, but the conviction in his future self's voice made him reconsider. He ordered a retreat, leading his men away from the battlefield towards a safe haven. The scene around the adult hero began to change. He was transported to a new reality, where the battle had not been fought, and those he loved were alive and safe. However, the cost of this decision was soon revealed. Without victory in that battle, the enemy advanced, conquering territories and subjugating his people. The peace he found in saving his loved ones was replaced by the guilt of not having defended his home. He was now in a peaceful village, where he lived in seclusion, far from the conflict. But the feeling that he had failed to protect his nation plagued him, like a wound that never healed. His courage was tested, and he realized that there were no easy choices, only consequences that had to be faced. When the golden mist enveloped him again, he knew he was closer to understanding the true nature of his journey. He was changing, and the destiny he once believed he knew was fading, replaced by a series of new challenges. The golden mist cleared, revealing a tranquil and familiar scene. The courtyard of the house where the hero grew up. The stone walls, the well-kept garden, and the soft sound of birds singing brought back memories of a simpler childhood. However, what seemed like a haven of peace hid secrets that he would only discover many years later. The hero watched as his younger self, still a teenager, practiced with wooden swords under the close supervision of his father. The father figure, a strong and just man, had always been a model of honor and courage for him. But the adult hero knew that his father had kept a secret, something that would change the way he saw his own lineage and destiny. This secret would be revealed on a stormy night, when the hero, as an adult, would hear his father confess that he was not just a simple warrior, but the descendant of a line of demigods, marked by a burden that he too would have to carry. This revelation, which occurred very late in life, would profoundly affect the hero, making him question all his choices and the life he had built. Mnemosyne appeared beside the hero, her countenance serene. "This is the moment when you can discover the truth before it's too late," she said. "But remember, knowledge can be both a blessing and a curse. The riddle you must answer is, can knowledge liberate or imprison?" The hero thought about it for a long time. If he discovered the truth now, he could better prepare himself for what was to come, understand his destiny, and perhaps avoid the mistakes of the past. But at the same time, this knowledge could destroy the innocence and simplicity of his youth, burdening him with a weight he wasn't prepared to bear. Having made up his mind, the hero approached his father, who was observing the young man's training. "Father," he said, his voice firm but charged with emotion, "I know you're hiding something from me, something important about our family, about what I'm meant to be. Please tell me the truth." The hero's father looked at him with a mixture of surprise and sadness. He knew that once the secret was out, there would be no turning back. "Son," he began, his voice deep, "there are things I've kept to protect you, but perhaps it's time you knew. Our family, we descend from the ancient gods, and that blood carries both power and curse. What you choose to do with it will determine your future and the future of many." The hero felt the weight of his father's words. The truth was like a blow, instantly changing his perception of himself and the world around him. With this knowledge, he prepared himself for what was to come, but he also began to doubt all his past decisions. What he had believed to be his free choice now seemed to be guided by a destiny he did not know. The reality around him changed, leading him down a darker path, where the burden of his lineage began to weigh on his decisions. He became more introspective, questioning every step, every choice. The search for answers isolated him from others, creating a barrier between him and those he loved. When the golden mist enveloped him again, the hero realized that he was becoming a different person, shaped not only by the choices he had made, but also by the knowledge he had acquired. He began to question whether this journey was leading him to peace or just despair. The golden mist receded, revealing a scene of desolation. The hero was back on the battlefield, but this time it wasn't a war he was facing. In front of him, an imposing figure, his greatest enemy, was kneeling on the ground, wounded and vulnerable. The enemy's face was a mask of pain and hatred, but there was something else in his eyes, a glint of regret, a belated recognition of what he had lost in his quest for power. The hero knew the man well. He had been responsible for the deaths of many friends and family members, the devastation of lands, and the misery that had spread through his people. For years, the hero had pursued this enemy, dreaming of the moment of revenge. And now, at last, he stood before him, sword raised, ready to finish the mission that had consumed him so much. But something stopped him. The anger he had felt for so long was now accompanied by a deep sadness. The enemy, once so feared and hated, now seemed a shadow of his former self, someone who had lost as much as the hero himself. Mnemosyne appeared at his side, her calm presence contrasting with the tension in the air. "This is the moment when you can decide the fate of your greatest enemy," she said. "But this choice is not just about revenge. The riddle you must answer is forgiveness a strength or a weakness?" The hero remained silent, staring at the man in front of him. All his life, he had believed that strength lay in destroying your enemies, in ensuring that justice was done. But now, seeing the man kneeling helplessly, he began to wonder if there was more strength in the act of forgiving, of letting go of the hatred that consumed him. He lowered his sword, feeling the weight of his decision. "I should kill you for everything you've done," said the hero, his voice firm, but not without compassion. "But killing you now won't bring back those I've lost. It won't repair the damage that's been done. Perhaps by sparing your life, I can break this cycle of hatred that has destroyed us." The enemy looked up, confused, expecting a death that didn't come. The hero, instead of ending the fight, reached out to help the man up. "Live with the weight of your mistakes," he said, "and find a way to redeem yourself, if there is still hope for you." In making this choice, the hero felt the world around him change. The scene of destruction was replaced by a future where that enemy, spared by compassion, became an unexpected ally, someone who helped rebuild what had been destroyed. But this choice also brought new complications. Others, who had suffered at the hands of that man, didn't understand the hero's act of mercy. He became a lonely leader, seen by many as weak, unable to avenge the dead. The reality around him became a maze of doubts and regrets. He wondered if he had really done the right thing, if the forgiveness he had offered had brought peace or just perpetuated the pain. As the golden mist began to envelop him again, the hero prepared himself for the next challenge, aware that he was approaching the moment when he would have to confront the full impact of his decisions. The golden mist dissipated one last time, revealing an empty space, immense and silent. There were no battles, no memories or familiar faces, just a vast, white field where time seemed to have stopped. The hero found himself alone, with only his thoughts for company. He had traveled through his life, rewritten important parts of his story, and now stood on the threshold of a final choice. In front of him, Mnemosyne appeared, radiant as ever, but this time there was something different in her expression, a mixture of sadness and wisdom accumulated over the centuries. "You have reached the end of your journey, hero," she said softly. "Now, you must make your final choice." The hero looked at the goddess, aware that what he decided there would determine not only his fate, but the fate of all those he had loved, hated, and protected throughout his life. "What must I choose?" he asked, his voice laden with a mixture of weariness and determination. "You can keep the changes you've made," replied Mnemosyne, "and live with the new realities you've created. Or you can restore the past to what it was before, accepting the lessons that the original life taught you, with all its pains and joys." The hero thought deeply about the offer. He knew that by changing the past, he had created new futures, some better, some worse. He saw how each decision had a domino effect, altering not only his life, but the lives of everyone around him. The choices he made transformed him, shaping him into someone different from the one who had started the journey. Mnemosyne watched him in silence, before presenting the last riddle. "Is true peace in change or in acceptance?" These words echoed in the hero's mind, resonating with all the decisions he had made so far. He wondered if the peace he so desperately sought could really be found by changing the past, or if true peace lay in accepting what had happened, learning from his mistakes, and living with the scars they left behind. He remembered the childhood rewritten, the love avoided, the betrayal prevented, the battle not fought, the knowledge discovered, and the enemy forgiven. Each change brought a new reality, but also new pains and uncertainties. The burden of decisions weighed heavily on him, and the truth that began to emerge was clear. There was no choice that would bring perfect happiness, only different paths to take. Finally, the hero took a deep breath and made his decision. "I choose acceptance," he said in a firm but serene voice. "I choose to accept what has happened, with all the mistakes and successes, because that's what makes me who I am." Mnemosyne smiled, a smile full of understanding and respect. "This is the wisdom that many seek, but few find," she said. "By accepting the past, you embrace the totality of your existence, with all that it has taught you." With those words, the golden mist began to envelop him once again. But this time, there was no more fear or doubt. He felt himself being pulled back to the present, to the world he knew, but with a new perspective, a new understanding of himself and his journey. When the fog finally cleared, the hero was back in his own time, on the battlefield where he had started. The world around him was the same as before, but something inside him had changed. He had made peace with his past, and with that, he had found the peace he had been searching for. Mnemosyne, now just a memory, whispered her last words. "Go, hero, and live with the wisdom you have gained. History cannot be rewritten, but it can be understood." With these words, the hero stood up, ready to face the future, no longer with the weight of regret, but with the strength of acceptance.